Hey everyone, it's James from Ting, and now it is time. It is Halloween season, it's time to get spooky, and what better way than looking at some PSP games that are full-on horror. So in today's video, we're going to have a look at a few PSP games that'll get you into the spirit for Halloween. So let's get into it. Medieval Resurrection on the PSP serves up as the perfect horror Halloween vibe. Its spooky yet humorous tone in this game is fantastic. It gives you the same sort of vibes as the film Army of Darkness. In this game you play as Sir Daniel Fortescue, a one-eyed skeletal knight who gets a second chance to save his kingdom from the clutches of evil and the sorcerer Zarog. The game is very similar to its PS1 counterpart, with a mix of eerie environments and quirky characters, and also a bit of dark humour thrown in. The art style is great too, striking a balance between creepy and cartoonish, making this accessible to anyone looking for a spooky experience. The soundtrack is atmospheric, dark, and the sound effects really help you immerse in the world, with haunted cemeteries, creepy dungeons, and other environments that you associate with the horror genre. This really adds to the spookiness of the game, and this can also give you sort of Nightmare Before Christmas vibes as well. It looks like something that was out of a Tim Burton movie. The gameplay is what makes this game special, combining action as well as puzzle solving, making it both engaging and challenging. The enemies have their own charm to the game as well, and can be grotesque horror favourites like zombies and giant pumpkin monsters. The game is a blend of dark fantasy with whimsical elements that may not give you the jump scares that you expect, but it will fulfill that spooky itch that you want for a horror game. If you're enjoying this spooky season, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and let us know down below what are your favourite horror games on the PSP.
So when James asked me if I wanted to talk about the PSP, there's only one thing I really thought. But then he says, I'm going to ask you to talk about a franchise that I think you like. And that's where we come to Manhunt 2. So Manhunt 2 was released on the Wii as well as the PlayStation 2, but we're playing it on the PSP today. Now this is a fairly controversial title, following on for the initial success in the Manhunt games developed by Rockstar. Now it's a direct sequel for the 2003 original, and much like its predecessor, it thrives on graphic violence, twisted storylines, as well as psychological tension. And despite the limitations for the PSP hardware, Manhunt 2 does manage to deliver a brutal, stealth-based horror experience that does push the boundaries in more ways than one. So let's have a wee look at the storyline and the atmosphere. So you play as Daniel Lamb, who has escaped from a mental institution, and the point of the game is basically to piece together the shattered memories of your past. And as he kinda unravels it piece by piece, he's entangled in a kinda web of murder, conspiracy, mental instability, all that fun stuff, and guided by a malevolent voice in his head who just keeps randomly appearing, called Leo Casper. Now, much like the previous Manhunt game, the story is quite bleak and quite disturbing at times, and it's perfectly fitting the game's dark tone. The narrative delves into deep themes, kind of sanity and identity manipulation, but is also messy at times, often slipping into absurdity as the story becomes kind of more convoluted. The atmosphere though, man, this is going to be one of Manhunt 2's greatest aspects. The game maintains a constant sense of dread, primarily due to the fact that its environment is so gritty, the sound design is very unsettling, and the visual presentation is overall grim. Now at its core, Manhunt 2 is a stealth action game, where sneaking up on enemies to execute the brutal kills is the central mechanic. Stealth is critical because gun and guns blazing will lead to a quick death, and all the fun is in the stealth kills. So Manhunt 2 on the PSP now, it might not be the best version, but it does remain fairly solid, especially for it being portable. Now, like I said, the controls can be a wee bit frustrating, but once you get used to it, it's no limitation. The graphics again have been kind of toned down when you perform your executions. There's this kind of grainy blur that goes over them, which isn't the best, but you can still kind of tell what's going on. And if you can handle the violent content and navigate the kind of clunky controls, I'd say Manhunt 2 definitely delivers a grim, unsettling experience on the go.
Hysteria Project 2 has all the ingredients for a bone-chilling horror experience. This short interactive horror adventure on PSP is like being thrown into a horror movie, where every choice that you make impacts your survival. It's very similar to the Sega CD game Night Trap, just without being super cheesy. The game's live-action footage also gives it a uniquely realistic, immersive feel as well. The narrative is full of mystery and suspense of horror throughout the game, keeping players on edge as they navigate creepy environments to uncover dark secrets. You as the player needs to focus on surviving this nightmare scenario and working your way out of various situations that you've been put in. Throughout the game, there is a consistent sense of dread and fear and thrilling urgency to escape the danger that ensues you, making sure that you feel uneasy throughout your entire playthrough. Adding the spookiness to the eerie sound design, the creepy noises are also filled with haunting atmospheric music that really amplifies the tension. There are quick time events and puzzles that add a layer of interactivity as well, making you feel even more connected to the terror unfolding on your PSP. While this may not be the most terrifying or longest game on this list, Hysteria Project 2 invokes the fear and the horror that you're looking for on your PSP and makes it a well worth playthrough. Castlevania Dracula X is another classic in the series that we all know and love. This action platformer classic thrusts players into a dark vampire-infested world with monsters and mystical creatures that the series is known for. The eerie environments from the haunted castles and the spooky forest create a really spine-tingling backdrop that are sure to bring terrifying experiences to your PSP. In this game, you play as Richter Belmont, a descent of the Belmont family armed with his iconic whip and holy weapons, whose lineage is to take on Dracula and his army of the undead. This game is full of intense, fast-paced gameplay that the other Castlevania titles are known for, with monstrous foes as well as other challenging platforming sequences. Each level includes numerous alternative pathways and secrets to encourage exploration. As you work your way through the levels, you must get to the end of the level and defeat the hordes of monsters sent out to get you, while the looming threat of Dracula is waiting for your demise. The soundtrack for this game also doesn't disappoint. Much like the other Castlevanias in the series, you know you're in for a treat. Castlevania games tend to have the best soundtracks of all of gaming, and they get stuck in your head for a long time after you finish playing. All these elements make this game a fantastic game, and you definitely should check out Castlevania X on the PSP. We never got a Resident Evil game on the PSP unless you played the PS1 Classic through the ports that were released. Instead, we got Obscure: The Aftermath on the PSP, and it's an exceptional game and definitely a contender for possibly one of the scariest games from this era of gaming. This game is chilling, atmospheric, and has a really grippy, fantastic story. This game, years before we had Last of Us, explores what it would have been like if mutant creatures were created from planet spores. This survival horror game thrusts you into a nightmare scenario of Fall Creek University, where a bizarre plan turns students into horrifying creatures. The game is dark, it's eerie, the environments are really unsettling and nerve-wracking. The sound design amplifies all of this. The survival element keeps you on your toes, and resources are limited, and every monster encounter is a tense fight for survival. What really sets this game apart is its cooperative gameplay as well. You can team up with a buddy, which adds a unique layer of shared horror similar to the Resident Evil Revelation series as you navigate this game's creepy setting together. The mix of puzzle solving and combat ensures that the varied experience is engaging as well. Within the story, there are twists and psychological horror elements that keep you hooked throughout. Each character has a set of unique abilities, adding more depth to the gameplay as well as the strategy within the game. This game is just intense and well worth playing as much as the other classics in the survival horror genre. Infected on the PSP is a perfect horror game, bringing a mix of tense action and spooky, colourful vibes. Set in a colourful, zombie-infested New York City, this game plunges you into a fight for survival against relentless hordes of the undead in order to survive. You roam snowy streets with flesh-hungry zombies. Armed to the teeth, you're ready to wipe out the problem though. Infected is a fast-paced and chaotic game. You wield powerful weapons to blast through the waves of zombies. You also have a ton of missions to complete through various stages, which also keeps it fresh as you play the game. There is an infection mechanic as well, where enemies explode to spread the virus to others. This really makes you want to blow them all to smithereens. There is also a body counter as well that encourages you to want to blow up as many of these zombies as possible and create as much death and destruction as possible. This is more an action game with a horror setting, however, is still a lot of fun to play. Silent Hill Shattered Memories on the PSP achieves the same as the other games in this series. It's chillingly perfect and really focuses on atmosphere. This game is a reimagining of the original Silent Hill game as you return to the foggy, abandoned town, playing with psychological horror aspects of the game, ensuring that it's an unsettling experience throughout. What sets this game apart from the original game is rather than being a carbon copy, you take control of a different universe's version of Harry Mason as he looks for his missing daughter. The alternative universe angle provides a very different take on the tension, as well as the suspense for players that are well versed with the PS1 original. The use of psychological profiling, where this game adapts to your fears and actions, really adds a deeply personal and disturbing layer to the experience. Silent Hill Shattered Memories does not have any combat within the game and instead focuses on the psychological horror inflicted upon Harry, which really changes it up enough just to make you feel like you're playing a new style of game within the Silent Hill universe. With no combat, the game now focuses on evasion as well as survival, heightening the tension and making encounters with enemies even more genuinely terrifying, and at times can make you feel utterly helpless. The story is filled with twists and turns that leave you with a spine-chilling experience. There is also a lot of replayability within this game. There are multiple endings to explore, all of which depend on your choices throughout the game. So if you're looking for something pretty terrifying to play this year for Halloween, definitely check this game out. So those are my picks for the PSP, and I also thoroughly enjoyed playing through some of these games. They are absolutely terrifying. They're all gold, and I don't think the PSP actually had that much guff on it, to be fair, when it comes to horror. So what games are you playing this season? What games are getting you into the spirit? Like I said, these ones are the ones that got me into the spirit, and I absolutely love them. So anyways, guys, thanks very much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.